BYD's largest unfinished project, 3 billion monorail rusting away. The incomplete Sky Rail lines seen on screen have been abandoned in various corners of several cities. Judging by the thick layer of dust on the completed stations and vehicles, as well as some unfinished track bridges, it is evident that these cities' rail projects have been halted for quite some time. In multiple cities across China, incomplete sections of BYD's monorail project, known as SkyRail, stand abandoned. From the thick layers of dust on stations and vehicles and the unfinished tracks and bridges, it's clear that construction has been halted for quite some time. BYD launched SkyRail, a straddle-type monorail system, in 2016. Unlike traditional subway and railway systems that run on dual tracks, SkyRail relies on a single beam to support and guide the carriages. The system is categorized into two types based on its support structure: suspended and straddle-type. In October 2016, BYD made a bold entry into the rail transit industry, rapidly expanding its market through an investment for market share strategy. By the end of 2017, the company had reached its peak, with nearly 20 monorail contracts signed and 7 or 8 projects under construction. This marked BYD as a standout private company in a sector dominated by state-owned enterprises. The construction of SkyRail projects was primarily seen in China's smaller second- and third-tier cities, where subway systems have not fully expanded. One notable example of BYD's rapid expansion was in Guilin City. On May 26, 2017, the Guilin City government signed investment cooperation agreements with BYD. According to the agreements, BYD committed to investing in the development of a straddle-type monorail industry and a new energy bus project with an annual production capacity of 5,000 units. The project included monorail production, new energy bus production, and a track beam manufacturing facility. Within 3 years of full operation, the total output value was expected to exceed 10 billion yuan. The agreements outlined a build-operate-transfer model for the rail transit projects. The first phase aimed to construct a 20-kilometer demonstration line as a tourist route, with plans to extend to about 50 kilometers within 2 to 3 years. The long-term goal was to expand at a rate of 30 kilometers per year, with over 200 kilometers completed within 5 to 8 years. The monorail was designed to run at speeds between 80 to 100 kilometers per hour. Additionally, BYD pledged to establish a research and training base in Guilin, aiming to make the city a key hub in its global production, manufacturing, and R&D network. However, despite the ambitious plans, reality has been much harsher. The Park North Road station in Guilin, once the site of a grand, groundbreaking ceremony, now lies desolate. The staircase leading to the platform is blocked by green fabric, and the surrounding area is strewn with construction debris and unfinished tracks. As BYD's monorail projects progressed, conflicts between the company and local governments became more pronounced. According to reports, the promise made by BYD diverged significantly from the expectations of the Guilin city government, leading to escalating tensions. A source from Guilin's transport investment company revealed that BYD initially stated the cost of the SkyRail would be around 200 million yuan per kilometer. However, once construction began, costs quickly rose. By mid-2018, the price had surged to 265 million yuan per kilometer. Following these budget overruns, both BYD and Guilin governments sought additional investments from each other, but negotiations failed. BYD then proposed switching from the SkyRail to a Skybus system, which was promptly rejected by the city. The reason? Skybus had less than half the passenger capacity of SkyRail, which did not meet the city's transportation needs. Since Guilin was already approved for monorail construction under national guidelines, the government saw no reason to abandon the high-capacity option. BYD's proposed Skybus is essentially an aerial bus system introduced as a lower-capacity transport alternative after the SkyRail. According to BYD's data, the SkyRail can carry 10,000 to 30,000 passengers per hour, whereas the Skybus can only handle between 6,000 and 10,000 passengers per hour. When the project exceeded budget estimates, BYD hoped that Guilin government would step in to cover the costs. However, under the build-operate-transfer agreement, BYD was responsible for funding 90% of the project. Although the agreement required the government to divest a repurchase plan within the franchise period, no clear plan was specified. Guiling's transport investment company argued that BYD's upfront financing created significant financial burdens, and if the government were to take over, it would be better managed directly by them. After numerous failed attempts to reach a financial agreement, construction on the SkyRail was halted. An insider from the Guiling government indicated that the decision to choose BYD may have been made hastily. They noted that multiple companies were not invited to bid and comprehensive evaluations were not conducted, leading to current challenges regarding whether to dismantle the project, who would take on the task, and what the next steps should be. Shantou City was another abandoned project. It was the first city to partner with BYD on the SkyRail project, signing the inaugural contract in 2016. In late 2023, some residents noticed that the halted progress and raised concerns that the project had been abandoned. There were even suggestions from residents to repurpose the monorail, either by integrating it with the city's tram system or connecting it to the Eastern Guangdong Intercity Rail network, potentially transforming it into a city-wide modern transit solution. However, Shantou's Transportation Bureau responded, stating that the city does not currently meet the requirements for subway or light rail construction. While they have planned to reserve space for future SkyRail projects, there have been no signs of development starting anytime soon. This issue is not isolated to Guilin and Shantou. Across China, several counties and cities that invested in the SkyRail have faced similar problems. For instance, in Zhouchen, Shandong, a resident warned on the Jining government website that the stalled SkyRail project risked becoming a failed project. The Jining Transport Bureau replied in May, noting that rail transit plans were still awaiting approval, with no clear timeline for resuming construction. Reports highlight that since May 2019, Jining's SkyRail project has been plagued with issues. Trains have been left idle for long periods, station interior remain unfinished, and construction sites are cluttered with debris. In response to similar concerns, the government of Benbu Anhui noted that due to policy adjustments, the city's permanent population did not meet the criteria for light rail construction. Therefore, the completed project would not be operational. Similar replies were issued by governments in other cities, reflecting a widespread struggle with stalled monorail projects across the country. Unlike most stalled projects, there is one exception. The SkyRail in Xi'an's high-tech zone, according to a response from local authorities on People's Daily Online. The project is still under construction. The early phases, such as landscaping and pipeline relocation, have already started, and station construction is underway. The government assured that residents can inquire about the progress at any time, with the Housing and Urban Rural Development Bureau ready to provide updates. While Xi'an's SkyRail is one of the few projects still active, it's hard to predict if it will face the same fate as other stalled projects across the country. Digging deeper into the official responses from cities with stalled SkyRail projects, there seem to be significant gaps in the explanations. If the real issue was the environmental and logistical constraints they mentioned, why did these projects proceed without first confirming whether the cities were suitable? One of the reasons behind these stalled projects lies in a common practice in the urban transport industry called the investment for market model. So what exactly is this model? Simply put, it's a strategy where suppliers secure government contracts by making large investments in the area. After entering the rail transit sector in 2016, BYD adopted this model, one that had already proved successful for them in the electric vehicle market. Between 2016 and 2017, BYD signed monorail investment agreements with several local governments, with investment commitments ranging from billions to tens of billions of yuan. According to reports, before the merger of China's two major rail giants, CSR and CNR, they used the same approach to sign metro corporation agreements with local governments, resulting in over 15 contracts worth hundreds of billions of yuan, which led to the establishment of many rail transit industrial bases. While this investment for market approach created an appearance of prosperity in China's urban rail transit industry, it also also led to overcapacity in rail transit equipment, sparking a price war that drove down profits. By the end of China's 12th five-year plan, the profit margin on urban metro vehicles had dwindled to just 10%. Beyond issues with the investment model, the SkyRail also struggles to gain traction in city centers and densely developed areas. So far, most of the cities with SkyRail projects are smaller second and third-tier cities, which have generally been unable to sustain such projects. On the global stage, straddle-type monorails are operational in places like Europe, the US, Japan, and China's Chongqing. However, according to rough estimates, the total length of operational straddle-type monorail lines worldwide is only about 260 kilometers. This pales in comparison to the hundreds of thousands of kilometers of subways and commuter railways around the world. Of the existing straddle-type monorails, 2/3 are used primarily for tourism, with only a few lines in cities like Chongqing, China, and certain Japanese cities serving daily commuters. Apart from Chongqing's monorail, which runs through the city center, most of Japan's monorails are used for airport connections or to link suburbs with city centers. Additionally, many international monorail lines like those in Osaka, Sydney, New York, and Moscow have either been dismantled, shut down, or are slated for removal. These examples show that straddle-type monorails are generally limited to tourism or connecting suburban areas with urban centers, and they have yet to gain widespread adoption as a core public transit option in major cities, let alone in smaller second and third-tier cities in China. Straddle-type monorails have stringent requirements for city planning and space, which limit their applicability. They are usually built on elevated tracks, which occupy significant urban and road space. Planning documents show that SkyRail routes and stations generally need to meet specific criteria. Either the road must have a median strip or there must be a green belt on at least one side of the road. Clearly, neither large nor small cities can easily accommodate these requirements, especially in old or densely developed areas, which could lead to major demolition pressures. While the future of the SkyRail remains uncertain, these challenges points to deeper issues in urban planning and investment strategies, which may continue to impact similar projects across the country. There are also inherent technical disadvantages. Firstly, straddle-type monorails are non-standard rail systems, meaning the technical specifications for tracks, vehicles, and stations can vary widely. This makes it difficult to integrate monorails with conventional rail networks. The narrow tracks beams of straddle-type monorails lack the walkable surfaces seen in elevated subways, which can pose serious safety risks. In an emergency, evacuating passengers and assessing the site for rescue can be extremely difficult. Another key issue is that unlike traditional railways, straddle-type monorails cannot switch tracks easily. Changing lines often requires rotating the entire track beam to complicate process. Despite being cheaper than subways, straddle-type monorails still demand extensive infrastructure, leading to high cost for construction, maintenance, and operation. Based on domestic and international cases, the actual cost of building straddle-type monorails can exceed the estimated 200 to 250 million yuan per kilometer, making it 2 to 5 times more expensive than bus rapid transit systems. These factors have placed SkyRail in a tough spot. It's too expensive and underdeveloped for large cities and unnecessary for smaller ones. Beyond cost and compatibility issues, BYD's SkyRail technology itself has been under heavy scrutiny. The world's first straddle-type monorail was introduced in 1888 by French engineer Charles Latigue and operated in Ireland. After World War II, countries such as Germany, Japan, and the United States experimented with monorails. With the technology evolving over the decades, China, however, was late to the game, with its first straddle-type monorail project starting in Chongqing in 2000, using technology imported from Japan's Hitachi. Today, China still relies on advanced components from developed nations, making it vulnerable to potential restrictions if diplomatic relations sour. Even though BYD spent 5 years and invested 5 billion yuan to develop SkyRail, it remains dependent on foreign technology for essential components. A high-speed rail expert explained to local media that the technology behind straddle-type monorails isn't particularly complex. It essentially brings electric vehicle mechanisms into a guided transport system. He said SkyRail is like an electric car that clings to the beam, raising questions about whether BYD's technology is generally mature or if issues might arise during operations. Given that SkyRail operates like an electric vehicle on a beam, any technical flaws seen in electric cars could potentially become safety risks if the systems were widely adopted. The most fundamental issue for SkyRail, however, is a lack of funding. Despite being China's top-selling homegrown car brand, BYD faces financial difficulties. During the first half of this year, BYD sold 613,000 vehicles, generating a net profit of $1.9 billion US. Yet the profit per vehicle is just around $1,200 US, far less than the luxury car brands. Selling a single Ferrari, for example, is equivalent to selling 100 BYD cars. With an annual net profit of just over 10 billion yuan, BYD would need tens of billions or even hundreds of billions to fund SkyRail projects across multiple cities. Attempting to expand the SkyRail while investing in other technologies could quickly overwhelm BYD's finances, making the decision to halt the projects an understandable one. Moreover, the Chinese government, which had previously subsidized BYD and other electric vehicle manufacturers, is also strapped for cash. According to the State Council's 2023 Government Debt Management Report, China's official debt stood at 70.8 trillion yuan by the end of 2023, with 30 trillion yuan in national debt and 40.7 trillion yuan in local government debt. Local government debt has surpassed central government debt, and with a GDP of 126 trillion yuan in 2023, the debt to GDP ratio was 56%, hovering close to the 60% risk threshold. High local government debt levels have even led Beijing to issue directives earlier this year, urging indebted local governments to delay or halt state-funded infrastructure projects to manage debt risks. Reuters reported on January 19th that the State Council instructed local governments and state-owned banks to pause projects that had not yet received half of their planned investments. These projects likely included some SkyRail initiatives. Given these financial and technical challenges, it's no surprise that the SkyRail projects have been suspended, and the chance of revival seems slim. There's no denying that SkyRail has become a symbol of failed projects in China's modern era.